If you believe being fair is the key to earning respect, stop this video right now. For years, you've been told to be the bigger person, to be accommodating, to show your loyalty through unending patience and kindness. And for years, you've been talked over, overlooked, and taken for granted. You've been taught that if you're a good person and play by the rules, you'll eventually be rewarded. But the reality you're living in tells a very different story, doesn't it? You're not being respected, you're being used. Your generosity isn't seen as a strength, it's treated as a weakness to be exploited. You think fairness will win you the game. But what if the rules you've been playing by are wrong? What if the entire game is rigged against the very idea of fairness? Back in the 16th century, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli was exiled from his home city of Florence. Stripped of his power and status, he spent his days reflecting on the brutal realities of human nature. He wrote a private playbook for rulers, a guide built on one terrifying truth. Respect isn't given to the deserving, it's taken by the strategic. That book, The Prince, wasn't about how the world should be, but who it is. It describes a world where people are driven by self-interest, where love is fickle, and where fear is a much more reliable motivator. You've been trying to win respect by appealing to people's better nature. Machiavelli teaches that real power comes from understanding and leveraging their predictable, self-interested nature. You believe fairness is the path to being valued. This video will teach you how to stop playing their game and start writing your own rules. These aren't lessons in cruelty. They're lessons in psychological realism. By the end of this video, you'll have 8 ruthless lessons, adapted from Machiavelli, that will make you dangerously smart and command the respect you deserve. The world taught you a lie. It taught you that the middle ground is the path of the wise. Compromise. Meet in the middle. Be fair. You've been told to forgive the small slights, to let minor disrespect slide, to be the bigger person by offering a slap on the wrist when a much stronger response is needed. And that philosophy of measured, fair responses, it's the psychological trap that keeps you powerless. When someone disrespects you, a colleague steals your idea, a friend ignores your time, a partner undermines your confidence, your instinct is to react proportionally. You offer a mild complaint, you express your disappointment, you create a little distance and hope they get the message. But they don't get the message. They just learn the price of admission for disrespecting you, and they discover it's cheap. They learn they can push your boundaries, take what's yours, and the worst they'll get is a minor, manageable consequence. You haven't taught them to respect you. You've taught them how to disrespect you more efficiently. The Machiavellian truth is terrifyingly simple. Men should either be treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries, but cannot do so for grave ones. This isn't a call for physical violence. It's a profound psychological rule about setting absolute boundaries and removing any chance for retaliation. When you respond to an offense with a weak or fair punishment, you create a resentful enemy who isn't afraid of you. They won't reflect on their mistake. They'll plot their revenge, waiting for you to be weak, and then they'll strike. You've left the snake wounded, but with its fangs intact. The dangerously smart way to apply this is to operate in extremes. There is no middle ground. Option 1. Overwhelming generosity. When an offense is small, maybe unintentional, or from a valuable ally who made a rare mistake, you can forgive it so completely that you actually indebt them to you. You don't just say, "It's okay." You wave it off as if it were nothing. Maybe even do them a favor soon after. This unexpected magnanimity turns a potential adversary into a loyal ally, bound by the psychological weight of your grace. But for deliberate, calculated acts of disrespect, for those who knowingly cross your lines, to test you, the response has to be the opposite. Decisive, severe, and final. This is destruction in the modern world. It means removing them from your life so completely they have no way to retaliate. You don't just unfriend them, you block them and cut off all mutual connections. You don't just report a coworker's plagiarism to HR. You build an undeniable case to ensure they are removed from the project or the company entirely, cutting off their access to the resources they used against you. You don't argue with a toxic family member. You calmly and permanently withdraw your presence, your money, and your emotional energy. The injury you inflict must be so severe that, as Machiavelli says, his vengeance need not be feared. A person who is merely embarrassed will seek revenge. A person who is professionally and socially annihilated has no power to do so. This builds a fearsome reputation. People will see there are only two ways to deal with you: with total respect, which you meet with generosity, or with disrespect, which they meet with their own This binary choice gets rid of the gray area where disrespect grows. You stop being a person whose boundaries can be tested and become a force whose boundaries are absolute. Your greatest weakness isn't your anger. It's your reaction. When you're attacked or belittled, your face gets hot, your heart pounds, and you feel that overwhelming urge to fight back, to defend yourself, to react. That emotional surge is a signal to your opponent. They've found a weak spot. They've pierced your armor. Your outburst is their victory lap. It proves they have power over you. They now own your emotional state. Society paints the ruthless as hot-headed and impulsive. The truly ruthless are the opposite. They are ice-cold, still, and observant. True ruthlessness is the absolute discipline to feel the fire of anger but show nothing but a frozen calm. It's the ability to take a hit without flinching, giving your attacker no data, no feedback, no satisfaction. This isn't weakness. It's the highest form of psychological warfare. Machiavelli knew that emotional reactions are a liability. He wrote, "Injuries should be inflicted all at once, so that, being savored less, they give less offense." The hidden wisdom here isn't just about timing, but the emotional state you're in when you act. An attack born from hot rage is sloppy and chaotic. An attack delivered from cold, calculated observation is precise, final, and terrifying. When someone undermines you in a meeting, the amateur gets defensive. Taistama. Their voice gets higher, and they scramble to correct the record. The Machiavellian mind does something else. It goes steel. The eyes lock onto the aggressor, not with anger, but with a flat, analytical curiosity. No change in posture, no defensive folding of the arms. This unnerving stillness does two things. First, it denies the aggressor their prize. They wanted a reaction, and you gave them nothing. Their power play fell flat. Second, it creates a terrifying vacuum. Your silence forces everyone in the room to look at the aggressor's hostility, which now hangs in the air, exposed and ugly. Without saying a word, you've made them the villain. Internally, you're not suppressing the emotion. You're observing it. You're noting the attack, the attacker, the context. You are a general on a hill, watching the enemy reveal their position. Your lack of reaction isn't passivity. It's intelligence gathering. The strike, when it comes, won't be in that moment. It will be later, an hour, a week, a month, and it won't be an emotional retort. It will be a strategic consequence. It might be a perfectly crafted email to their boss with evidence exposing their incompetence. It might be the silent withdrawal of your support on a project they can't finish without you. It will be delivered with that same ice-cold composure. Final. No shouting match. No drama. Just a quiet, irreversible checkmate. By mastering this ice-cold composure, you reprogram the power dynamics around you. People learn that provoking you is pointless and dangerous. They get no reaction, no drama. All they know is that at some point in the future, a precise and devastating consequence will arrive. You're no longer a person who can be emotionally manipulated. You're a force that must be respected. You live by the noble but fatally flawed idea that your true character, your hard work, and good intentions will eventually shine through. You believe what you are is more important than what you appear to be. That's a romantic notion that has no place in the world of power. In the cold calculus of human interaction, perception is reality. Machiavelli put it bluntly. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. People don't have the time or the desire to do a deep dive into your soul. They judge you on the signals you send. Your body language, your tone of voice, the words you choose, and the words you don't. They build a version of you in their heads based on this surface-level data, and they treat that version as the absolute truth. The dangerously smart person doesn't fight this. They use Italiano. They stop hoping to be understood and start engineering how they're perceived. This isn't about being fake. It's about being a deliberate, strategic performer, understanding that everything you do in front of others is a performance. Think about how non-reactivity shapes perception. In any conflict, the person who stays calm appears to be in control. When a colleague gets emotional in a negotiation, the amateur matches that emotion and instantly looks weak. The master of perception stays still. They might hold eye contact a second too long. They might take a slow, deliberate breath. That calculated pause sends a powerful message. Your outburst doesn't affect me. I'm operating on a different level. This stillness makes the other person second-guess themselves. Their emotional attack, hitting a wall of calm, collapses. They start to feel foolish and weak. You haven't said a word, yet you've completely dominated the situation. This applies to everything. Your movements should be slow and deliberate. People who rush and fidget signal anxiety and a lack of control. Leaders, predators, people with status, they glide. They move with an economy of motion that screams stability and power. When you walk into a room, plant your feet. When you sit, take up space. Let your posture be open and relaxed. These aren't just confidence tips. They are the building blocks of a perceived reality. Your speech, too, is a tool. The person who talks the most is often the least respected. They seem desperate to prove themselves. The powerful person understands the value of scarcity. They speak less, but their words carry more weight. When they do speak, their tone is measured and certain. They don't say, "Should we maybe try this?" They state, "This is the way forward." It's not about being right. It's about sounding certain. Humans crave certainty, and they will subconsciously give authority to whoever provides it. By mastering perception, you seize control of your own narrative. You're no longer at the mercy of other people's opinions. You are the author of their reality of you. You decide if you're seen as a stable authority or an emotional subordinate. As Machiavelli knew, in the theater of power, the costume is the character. Your current strategy for dealing with disrespect is exhausting. It's constant vigilance, emotional battles, and one draining conversation after another. Every time someone is late, misses a deadline, or breaks a promise, you have to step onto the battlefield. You have to have the talk, explain your boundaries, and hope they change. You've become the manual enforcer of respect, and it's a job that never ends. You're trying to change people. The Machiavellian approach is to stop trying to change people and instead change the system they operate in. A wise ruler doesn't personally punish every thief. He creates laws and courts that make theft a self-punishing act. The system does the work. As Machiavelli wrote, a wise person should rely on what is in their own control, not what is in the control of others. Other people's behavior is out of your control. Your environment, your rules of engagement, and the consequences for breaking them, that's what you control. The goal is to design a world around you where respect grants access and disrespect leads to automatic exclusion. Let's make this real. Imagine a colleague is chronically unreliable. They promise you documents, but never deliver, putting your work at risk. The old way is to chase them, remind them, and complain. The systems-based approach is to change the game. You send a follow-up email, CCing your boss, that says, as discussed, I'm waiting on your report to proceed. My deadline is Friday at 5 p.m. To meet it, I'll need your part by Thursday at noon. If I don't have it by then, I'll submit my report with the data I have and note that your section is pending. See what you did? You created a system with a clear, automated consequence. You're no longer the nag. The system now holds them accountable. If they file a consequence being flagged as the bottleneck to a superior is triggered automatically, your emotion is gone. The consequence teaches the lesson, not your anger. Apply this to your personal life. You have a friend who always cancels plans last minute. The battlefield approach is a tearful conversation about how much it hurts you. The system's approach is a new rule. The next time they ask to hang out, you say, I'd love to. Just so you know, I'm only making firm plans these days. If you commit to Saturday at 8, I'm there. But if you cancel last minute again, I won't be able to schedule anything for a while. You're not angry. You're clear. You're stating the terms of the system. When they inevitably cancel, you don't argue. You just enforce the system. The next time they reach out, you calmly say, like I said, I can't make plans right now. Hope you understand. The pain of being excluded is a much better teacher than your anger. The silence on their phone The lack of invitations, those are the natural consequences of their actions inside the system you built. This is dangerously smart because it saves your energy and raises your status. You're no longer a reactive player in every drama. You're the architect. You set the terms, and the system does the heavy lifting. People quickly learn that the easiest way to deal with you is to be respectful and reliable. Those who can't adapt are quietly removed by the system itself. You maintain dominance effortlessly, not through constant fighting, but through intelligent design. You've been taught that communication solves everything. Talk it out. Explain your position. Use your words. So when you feel disrespected, you talk more. You over-explain your reasoning, justify your feelings, and lay out your arguments, hoping that logic and transparency will win them over. But the more you talk, the more you give away. Your flood of words signals desperation and a need for validation. You're not commanding respect. You're begging for it. The most powerful people in any room are often the quietest. They understand a core Machiavellian principle. Silence isn't an absence of power. It's a concentrated form of it. When you speak, you reveal your position, your weaknesses, your emotional state. When you're silent, you reveal nothing, while forcing everyone else to reveal everything. Humans are profoundly uncomfortable with vacuums, especially social ones. When you deliberately go silent in a tense situation, you create a psychological void. The other person, desperate to fill it, will start talking. They'll expose their insecurities, their hidden motives, their weak spots. They'll project their own fears onto your silence, imagining the worst. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own internal chaos right back at them. Imagine you're in a negotiation and they make an insulting offer. The amateur immediately blurts out, "That's unacceptable." This reveals their disappointment and their position. The master does something different. They hear the offer and just stay silent. They look at the person, expression neutral, maybe with a slight, unreadable tilt of the head. The seconds stretch on. The other person starts to squirm. Their confidence evaporates. They're thinking, did I offend them? Was that too low? Do they think I'm a fool? The pressure of your silence becomes unbearable, and they crack. They start justifying the offer. Well, we started there because of X, but there might be some room to move. They've started negotiating against themselves, all because you refuse to speak. This weapon works anywhere. When someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, instead of confronting them, just look at them and say nothing. Force them to either own their nasty comment or awkwardly backtrack. When you're asked a loaded question, don't rush to answer. Take a deliberate pause. It signals that you're giving the question serious thought, which instantly raises your perceived authority. It also gives you time to form a strategic, not a reactive, response. Your calm becomes your command. Your restraint becomes your authority. Every time you resist the urge to fill a silence, you consolidate power. You teach people that your words are a scarce, valuable resource. When you finally do speak, your words land with the force of a hammer, because they aren't lost in a sea of nervous chatter. Stop over-explaining. Stop justifying. Stop giving your power away for free. Let your silence do the work. Let it be your interrogation tool, your shield, and your most feared weapon. People will stop seeing you as someone to talk over and start seeing you as someone they have to decipher. You've been taught that communication solves everything. Talk it out. Explain your position. Use your words. So when you feel disrespected, you talk more. You over-explain your reasoning, justify your feelings, and lay out your arguments, hoping that logic and transparency will win them over. But the more you talk, the more you give away. Your flood of words signals desperation and a need for validation. You're not commanding respect. You're begging for it. The most powerful people in any room are often the quietest. They understand a core Machiavellian principle. Silence isn't an absence of power. It's a concentrated form of it. When you speak, you reveal your position, your weaknesses, your emotional state. When you're silent, you reveal nothing, while forcing everyone else to reveal everything. Humans are profoundly uncomfortable with vacuums, especially social ones. When you deliberately go silent in a tense situation, you create a psychological void. The other person, desperate to fill it, will start talking. They'll expose their insecurities, their hidden motives, their weak spots. They'll project their own fears onto your silence, imagining the worst. Your silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own internal chaos right back at them. Imagine you're in a negotiation and they make an insulting offer. The amateur immediately blurts out, "That's unacceptable." This reveals their disappointment and their position. The master does something different. They hear the offer and just stay silent. They look at the person, expression neutral, maybe with a slight, unreadable tilt of the head. The seconds stretch on. The other person starts to squirm. Their confidence evaporates. They're thinking, did I offend them? Was that too low? Do they think I'm a fool? The pressure of your silence becomes unbearable, and they crack. They start justifying the offer. Well, we started there because of X, but there might be some room to move. They've started negotiating against themselves, all because you refuse to speak. This weapon works anywhere. When someone makes a passive-aggressive comment, instead of confronting them, just look at them and say nothing. Force them to either own their nasty comment or awkwardly backtrack. When you're asked a loaded question, don't rush to answer. Take a deliberate pause. It signals that you're giving the question serious thought, which instantly raises your perceived authority. It also gives you time to form a strategic, not a reactive, response. Your calm becomes your command. Your restraint becomes your authority. Every time you resist the urge to fill a silence, you consolidate power. You teach people that your words are a scarce, valuable resource. When you finally do speak, your words land with the force of a hammer, because they aren't lost in a sea of nervous chatter. Stop over-explaining. Stop justifying. Stop giving your power away for free. Let your silence do the work. Let it be your interrogation tool, your shield, and your most feared weapon. People will stop seeing you as someone to talk over and start seeing you as someone they have to decipher. We're taught to always project strength, to never show weakness. But that constant guard you keep up, it's blinding you. When you seem unbreakable, your hidden enemies, your rivals, and your fake friends have no reason to show their faces. They just smile and wait for a real crisis to hit. But what if you could unmask them before that happens? The secret is to strategically fake a weakness. It's not about being a victim. It's about playing one to see who takes the bait. For example, you could confide in a colleague you're unsure about, saying, "I'm really struggling with this project." A loyal person will offer help. A rival will see an opportunity to undermine you, maybe by mentioning your struggle to your boss. You've just exposed their true intentions without any real risk. This is a high-level mind game. It takes real confidence to pretend to be unconfident. By lowering your guard on your own terms, you invite your enemies into the light, where you can deal with them from a position of true power. Stop trying to win arguments. Seriously. It's a waste of energy. You try to change minds with debate and logic, but it usually backfires. People dig in their heels, their egos get involved, and your attempt to persuade them becomes a battle of wills. You're trying to move the person, which is the hardest thing to move. The true master of power moves the environment around the person, making their desired outcome the path of least resistance. Machiavelli was a master of understanding that circumstances dictate actions. A person acts differently in a desert than they do in a jungle. By changing the landscape, you can change their behavior without ever having a direct confrontation. This is the art of spatial control, manipulating the rules and the context so that others, of their own free will, choose the path you've laid out for them. Let's use a modern example. You're leading a team with one member who obstructs every idea. The amateur approach is to argue with them in every meeting. It's draining and it never works. The Machiavellian manipulator does something different. Before the next big meeting, you change the rules. You send out a new agenda format. To keep things efficient, all new ideas will be presented in the first 20 minutes. After that, we'll have a 10-minute constructive solutions-only session. Any objections must come with a written, pre-prepared alternative solution. You just altered the environment. You didn't tell the person to stop being negative. You changed the structure of the meeting to make their default behavior more difficult. Now, to be contrary, they have to do extra work. Faced with this new resistance, their behavior will naturally shift. They'll either adapt and become more constructive, or they'll shut up. You won, not by out-arguing them, but by redesigning the world they operate in. This works socially, too. Let's say one person in your friend group dominates every conversation. You can't just tell them to stop being a narcissist. Instead, you manipulate the environment. You stop organizing big, unstructured dinners where they can hold court. Instead, you start inviting people to activity-based outings, hiking, a cooking class, a movie. In these settings, the focus is on the activity, not the conversation. The conversational monopolist is naturally sidelined. Their primary tool, unstructured social forum, has been taken away. You've curated an environment that promotes the dynamic you want, without a single word of confrontation. This is about shifting from being a player in the game to being the designer of the game. You stop trying to control the pieces and start controlling the board itself. People will feel like they're making their own choices, but in reality, they're walking a path you paved. They will adapt to your rules and your world, believing it's the natural order of things. This is the most ruthless lesson, and it separates the truly powerful from the merely punitive. When you decide an adversary must be dealt with, your instinct is to deliver a blow, but not a final one. You fire the problem employee, but give them a glowing reference. You cut off a toxic friend, but leave the door open for them to apologize. You win a corporate battle, but let the losing side keep their influence. Why do you do this? Because you've been conditioned to be merciful, and you mistake that mercy for strength. Machiavelli would call it a fatal mistake. A wounded enemy is the most dangerous enemy of all. They have nothing to lose and are fueled by a burning desire for revenge. By leaving them a path to recovery, you've guaranteed a future threat. As Machiavelli advised, any injury you inflict must be so total that you don't need to fear their vengeance. When you strike, you can't just defeat them. You must annihilate their ability to ever rise against you again. You have to finish the job. No loose ends. In our world, this isn't about physical violence. It's about the complete, strategic removal of an adversary's power base. When you have to remove a threat, think like a demolition expert. You don't just knock down a wall, you dynamite the foundations. If a rival at work has betrayed you and you've gained the upper hand, it's not enough to have them move to another department. Their network, their access to information, their social capital, that's their foundation. You must systematically dismantle it. You ensure that key projects are reassigned. You discreetly inform their allies of their treachery, breaking their support base. You cut off their access to the resources they need to be effective. You don't just win the battle. You salt the earth where they stood so nothing can grow there again. The goal is to make their position so weak that they either choose to leave on their own or they become completely irrelevant. In your personal life, this means a clean amputation. When you cut a toxic person out, there are no half measures. You don't take a break. You block their number, their email, all social media. You tell mutual friends you're no longer in contact and won't be discussing it, closing off any way for them to get to you. You remove every possible bridge that connects your world to theirs. This isn't done out of anger. It's done out of a cold, strategic need for self-preservation. It denies them the psychological oxygen of hope, the hope they can manipulate their way back into your life. This requires a level of resolve most people lack. It feels cruel. But what's crueler? A single, clean, final act of removal, or an endless, messy cycle of conflict and pain. The half measure is a truly cruel act because it promises a pain that never ends. By adopting the principle of absolute finality, you send a chilling message. Your decisions aren't temporary fits of anger. They are permanent resolutions. People learn that if they become your enemy, there's no coming back. There is only the quiet, cold finality of their own irrelevance. This reputation for finishing what you start is the ultimate deterrent. It ensures most people will never dare to cross you in the first place. These 8 lessons aren't a guide to becoming a monster. They're a guide to surviving in a world that is often governed by monstrous appetites. For too long, you've played by a set of rules that your rivals have laughed at. Machiavelli's philosophy isn't about embracing evil. It's about understanding the reality of human nature, its ambition, its fear, its self-interest, and using that understanding as a shield and a sword. It's about intelligent, environmental control, not constant confrontation. The transformation starts now. You will stop using generosity as your default and start using it as a strategic tool. You will trade hot-headed anger for the formidable power of ice-cold composure. You will stop hoping to be understood and start engineering how you are perceived. You will stop fighting endless battles and start creating systems of automatic consequence.